Singh was also an MP. So that's the kind of commentary that is coming through right now.
Completely expected.
So this is just the opposition
completely correctly forecast.
Okay, the opposition being...
So, but you know,
I said all of these three lines also. Again,
now the problem is with the Congress, they are saying that this budget is just like a manifesto. So if it had not,
problem hai,
if it had
nahi
not,
karo to problem hai. How do you address this? And I don't know if...
Here's something that was going around WhatsApp.
अहमद की 5 करोड़ की संपत्ति को
would you give this budget?
I'd say it's it's up there in the 8 out of 10. I think it was a good budget, and it'll definitely help in terms of everything that we're doing to fuel growth. And if we're looking at a 7% growth, I think this is a great budget for that.
Okay, let's quickly look at a graphic that we prepared, viewers, to give you an idea of what's been covered in this particular budget exercise. IT slabs revised, taxes have been reduced. We're talking, of course, in the backdrop of an election. So remember that. Impact on voters, it's a relief to middle classes, mostly. 2.4 lakh crore for railways, impact on voter, new trains and modernization, which will obviously help certain regions in connectivity, and that obviously leads to a trickle-down effect. You have the Awas Yojana outlay enhanced, Navika, important number, 66%. The only quibble one might have here is that the target for last year was missed quite substantially for the Awas, number of Awases that were promised, but you had a problem with delivery. So obviously more poor voters to get houses. Now, remember viewers, these are very targeted schemes and they help actually in galvanizing a vote base. One might say that this is also, of course, a growth booster, naturally, but there are different ways of also interpreting this. And that's perhaps why the Congress party comes out and says it's an election budget. Mahila saving plan, deposit facility up to 2 lakhs. Again, financial incentives for women, empowering them, etc. 50 additional airports and aerodromes. Obviously, this would also push for connectivity, infra development, and give regions a lift. Manholes to become machine holes, very, very important. Dignity to lower castes involved in this. So this is very high on symbolism. And of course, 10,000 crores for urban infra development to create jobs. So already you have had the Prime Minister come out and announce jobs, saying that we're going to create 10 lakh jobs. But I think Mr. Mehrotra had a point to make on not just the numbers, but also something that Dr. Subramanian was saying. Mr. Mehrotra.
So let me begin. I want to make 3 sets of points, if I may.
Yes, of course.
The budget speaks about adding to the credit guarantee for MSMEs 9,000 crores, which is peanuts considering that there are 66 million non-farm MSMEs in the country. 66 million. What is 9,000 crores? And so we have to keep this in mind. And the second thing we need to keep in mind in this context about the 9,000 crores is that it is intended only for registered MSMEs. And the registered MSMEs constitute precisely 1% of this 66 million. And just to point out that MSMEs, which are 99% unregistered and therefore they are unorganized, do contribute, according to the economic survey, table 9.9, contribute 48% of share in exports of the country. But that is down, and that was 2018, and that's down in fiscal year 23 to 42% from 48, which is why you have seen unemployment rising and the employment rate, which is the share of the working age population, falling.
But Mr. Mehrotra, 10 years of Modi, 10 years of Modi, he's gone into his 10th year. I just want to point out one, you talk about this, and I'm not in any way disparaging that fact. Per capita income has more than doubled to 1.97 lakhs in around 9 years. Now, this is a big number.
Yes, but obviously this is happening for those who are above the median of the income and the median of the population. That's the point. the poor are getting poorer. We know this. Let me, if I might finish. I haven't only come to the second point. Because the fact of the matter is that you may well have Dr. Subramaniam's point being correct, that urban female labor force participation is increasing, regular work is increasing, but at the same time, this is a subset of total employment, and the employment rate, which is defined as the share of the working age population which has work, has systematically fallen from 2016 from 43% to 37%. That's a vast decline. And at the same time, when the employment rate is falling, the unemployment rate, youth unemployment, has anyone any idea what youth unemployment 15 to 29-year-olds for PLFS has gone from? From 2013, 2012, when it was something like 6%. On average for the entire youth, it's 16%. If you were a graduate, it went from 18% to 36%. I'm talking about youth unemployment. And this is, obviously, most of these people are not unpaid family labor. They're looking for work, but they are not finding work.
So they are your demographic.
So in other words, what we are saying is MSMEs have collapsed. They are closing. They are the ones who provide non-farm jobs. And for them in the budget, we are providing...
Okay, let's get in Dr. Subramanian to respond to you on this point.
Which is the reason also manufacturing share of GDP is falling.
Okay.
Also the reason why manufacturing share of employment is falling.
Okay. Doctor.
I think there are lots of factual errors that are being made here. Let me quote from the, firstly, I think the first factual error is that the outlay of 7,000 crores is only for the guarantee. I'm sure, Dr. Mehrotra understands that is essentially contingent on there being a default, first loss default. That's how the scheme has been organized. That guarantee of 7,000 crores will actually translate into credit of 2 lakh crores. 2 lakh crores is certainly not peanuts, and I'm sure my learned friend understands this very well. Second, let me, I don't interrupt when you speak, so allow me to speak as well. I think when we look at the manufacturing sector, and Dr. Panagaria sent this to me as well, Dr. Arvind Panagaria, and I've looked at the data. The manufacturing sector, as a percentage of GDP now is 18.2%. This is from the statistical tables. Okay. So I don't know what Dr. Mehrotra is talking about. If you look at the actual data, the numbers are very clear. So let's not peddle these fake narratives. And the third point here being unemployment. I think on the employment as well, on the employment, it is very important to keep in mind that the unemployment rate has declined to 7.2%. Whether it's the LFPR, labor force participation rate, the worker to population ratio, or the unemployment rate, all of those have actually declined. So I don't know what data.
Okay, we have two very accomplished people differing on the numbers in a substantial manner. Let's for a moment change tact and bring in the industry point of view. Sanjeev Goenka, founder and chairman of RP Sanjeev Goenka Group, joins us. Thank you very much for speaking to Times Now, Mr. Goenka. How do you rate this budget? What are your first impressions of the budget?
Well, thanks for having me here, Rahul, but let me just say that, generally, typically after a budget, you say, we want kuch aur chahiye, dil mange more. This is a budget which really leaves you not asking for anything more. And what do you expect from a budget? Focus on CapEx, focus on inclusive growth, focus on entrepreneurship, focus on startups, focus on agriculture, focus on infrastructure. Focus on simplification, focus on decriminalization, and almost every taxpayer will be paying less taxes. It literally covers the entire canvas. What more can you want? So for me, it's great, it's outstanding, it's comprehensive, it lays the foundation for huge investments going forward, not only in 23-24, but for the next several years.
But Mr. Goenka, many would ask that question. Good afternoon, this is Navika here. Many would ask that question that every year, India Inc. gives these huge numbers on a scale of 10, 8 and 9 to the budget. But at the end of the day, private investment hasn't really come up to the expectations. My question today to you would be, now with this budget, when you say कि दिल को सब कुछ मिल गया है, दिल cannot मांगे more, then will we actually see the private investment rate going up, and are we looking at a turnaround in that sense?
For sure. I think let's not forget that the last 2 years, you had the backdrop and the shadow of COVID looming large. So, private sector was, I think, naturally being cautious in terms of committing. The focus was on deleveraging. The focus was on consolidation. And the focus was on capacity utilization. All that has happened in the last 2 years. Now, I think people are reasonably confident of investing, and you will see investment coming forward. I think there is no doubt in that.
Okay, so if that's the thumbs up coming in from India Inc., that's the thumbs up coming in from most economists, of course with some reservations from Dr. Mehrotra. Yes, Sanjay Jha, where do you stand on this budget? It talks about fiscal discipline. It talks about tying up, and there is a subtle message there when states have been given a target of 3.5% fiscal deficit and 0.5% tied to power sector reforms, which means free revdi, free bijli, pani, all that will have a little bit of a check. I'd like to ask the economist, the business strategist in you rather than the politician in you. How do you rate this budget, Sanjay Jha?
In short, Navika, it's a ho-hum budget.
You're more of a politician than I ever believed.
No, we are students of political economy. So let me explain to you with hard data. India Inc. was similarly very exuberant when Nirmala Sitharaman gave those huge tax breaks in 2019. I challenge anybody from India Inc. today to tell us all how many jobs have they created. And after getting a 1,45,000 crore tax concession, if your private business still not reached the levels that it had done in the phase of the 2004 to 9, when it reached 38% GDP, what are we talking about? Number two, where is inclusive growth? I would have liked the FM to start her speech by first apologizing to the farmers of India, because Navika, this is the year 2022. Farmer income were meant to have doubled. And if you look at it in real terms, the farmers are worse off than they were before. Third, I'm quoting government data. If you look at the last survey that the government released, it accepted that 82% of workers in India, and I'm including agricultural, labor, urban poor, urban workers, etc., their real incomes today are lower than what they were pre-pandemic. So exactly, if you look at the numbers today, there's worry. Point number 4, even on Manrega, the number of households covered are lower in 2022 than they were.
Okay, so you get. Let me bring in Sanjeev Goenka once more. One second, Sanjay Jha. These are important statistics. Let me just bring him, because look, if you are pinning your hopes on growth to get you out of trouble, Mr. Goenka, as the government is sort of betting on, and that's why they're investing in capex, etc. As a businessman who is going to obviously take the baton forward by investing, what is it in this budget for a businessman like you that makes you say, well, we couldn't have asked for more? Does it address your needs?
You know, frankly, this budget, and it's not specific just this budget, but it's the actions of the government over the last 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. There has been a strong focus on infrastructure creation. There has been a strong focus on simplification. There has been a strong focus on decriminalization. There has been a focus on encouraging startups. Look at the number of unicorns that have been created with startups. So the enabling atmosphere or environment for investment is good. It's strong. India is a great market. India has a vision going forward. Most of the other economies in the world are facing headwinds. India is probably one of the very few economies in the world which, thanks to the actions of the government, is having a very strong tailwind. So as a businessman, you're going to look at where you're going to get maximum returns. And frankly, India is the place where you get maximum returns at this point in time. So there is no logic for you not to invest in India.
Well, thank you.
But then, Mr. Goenka, the criticism has been that the investment hasn't come forward and high net worth individuals are moving out of the country. That's been the criticism. So if you say there is an enabling atmosphere and you know the rules of the game are to push growth, then how do we actually keep these conflicting actions that seem to be happening?
Let's not forget that the last 2 years were COVID inflicted. And corporate India focused on consolidation, focused on actually being cautious, on deleveraging. So it was a different environment. It's the first time in 2 or 3 years that you're free of the specter of COVID. So you're able to think ahead. COVID hit us like a bolt from the blue.
Okay.
And I think now corporate India is actually looking at investment, is looking at growth, and is convinced that the world markets will respond, but India is the place to invest.
Thank you, Mr. Well, there you have a response from Mr. Goenka, who is actually a businessman invested in this country and looking for an enabling environment, and says there is one Sanjay Jha. So obviously, you have people. Now, you can't say everyone is sort of alloyed.
Oh, a quick response to you, Rahul.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, since we are talking inclusive growth, let me tell you that under Mr. Modi in the last 9 years, he'll be remembered, and this will be the legacy for the 10 years of which he is certain to be Prime Minister, is jobless growth and the destruction of the demographic dividend story. Give you an example. Today, one of the problems that many people will not talk about, and we all know why, is because you have very low aggregate demand, largely because India has become an unequal society. And you have a very good economist in the gentleman who was a former CA. I really like what he says. I may disagree with him on many issues. But the truth is, and he will have to agree with this, that in an economy which is unequal, demand will eventually become your biggest bottleneck to GDP growth. Where is the middle class discretionary expenditure going to come into play? The middle class itself has shrunk post-pandemic, Rahul. The urban poor is a massive challenge. And this government has not been able to stem the rot at all.
Okay.
So, giving a little middle, they have given an income tax relief on the slabs, but have you seen how much they're taking away? So this is a very cosmetic jugglery going on. Okay. And I think at the end of the day, the budget, I'm sorry to say, and I'm wearing an economist's hat, is subpar.
Dr. Subramanian, another response for you.
So again, let me state the facts, right? Yeah. If you look at the investment in the economy, what economists call the gross fixed capital formation to GDP, and I'm quoting from the economic survey, for 2021-22, it is 35.2%, has gone beyond the 35% threshold, and that it has increased from 32.8%. So, allied with that, also look at another fact. If you look at the April to December of 2022 period and compare it, to the 2020 same period, the manufacturing investment from private investors actually tripled. I think that is clear indication of the investment coming in, and I think here I actually would second what Mr. Goenka was saying, that in a period of uncertainty, it is always the case that private sector actually stays on the sidelines. But I think now that uncertainty seems to be clearly investors are getting used to it. So we should see, as we have already seen, the increase in gross fixed capital formation. This should accelerate further, and I hope it actually stretches towards 40% of GDP. That's the first point to keep in mind. Second, and I think here both Dr. Mehrotra earlier and Sanjay now I think seem to be reading from a script that actually is full of errors on employment. I think I've said it umpteen number of times, backed with solid research, that the CMI data is noisy, unreliable, and a lot of what these folks talk about on employment comes from that unreliable noisy data. If you look at the PLFS data, and this is from the NSSO, for God's sake. It is not administrative data, and actually, if you look at the employment creation, I've actually mentioned those facts earlier as well. So this point about jobless growth that Sanjay is talking about, I think, it doesn't fit the data. So let's talk based on data, and I think not peddle narratives that actually are,
Okay.
Well, he has conceded 7.2% on his own.
Okay.
So if 7.2% may have come down, but isn't that staggering?
Okay.
I mean, doesn't that bother you, Mr.
Surjit Bhalla wants to respond. Yeah.
Just very
As does
quickly,
Sanju Verma.
that both the two critics have pointed out to increasing inequality in India. Very emphatically, Sanjay Jha, very emphatically, and Santosh Mohan. Now, I don't need to tell you any more about the unreliability of CMI data. However, given that these experts are fond of using the CMI data, that the CMI data itself, and this is analysis done not just by CMI itself, but also by the World Bank, etc., that inequality in India has declined.
Yes.
Not gone up. So when people say the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, you are saying inequality is going up. But the CMI data shows just the opposite. And matter of fact, in a record amount of decline in inequality in the Indian experience. That's all I want to say.
So would you agree with that? I'm coming to you, Sanju Verma. I thought I'll get in Mr. Yogendra Yadav, who's joining us. Yogendra Yadav ji, if the CMI data itself is to be believed, Dr. Bhalla and former Chief Economic Advisor, current Executive Director to the IMF, KV Subramaniam, also say that inequalities are actually reducing. The fact that this budget has something for each of these sectors, including some social security measures that have been announced, do you think this budget is more equitable than it has been in the past, at least from the eyes of the opposition?
Navika, I'm no expert on unemployment, and Mr. Santosh Mehrotra being around, I don't think I should speak very much on unemployment. He should. And I think Mr. Bhalla had said something about inequalities being going down, and Jean Drèze had written an article, and I thought any honorable person should shut up after reading that article. But anyway, these things go on. Can I focus on agriculture, which is something I know a bit, one or two things about? And I say that with full sense of responsibility, and please listen to me because I'm now giving you new information which may not have figured on your show till now. This is the most anti-farmer budget in the history of this country. I say that not based on the speech alone, because I thought when I heard her speech, I thought farmer word has just kind of disappeared. There were digital things, there were agri-entrepreneurs, there were no farmers, but I thought that could be a matter of speech. I did not hear anything about some of the key schemes that I wanted to hear. No allocations were mentioned. I thought maybe it's indifference. I mean, after all, Gautam Adani is sinking and the government can be shaken. I can understand these problems. But then I looked at the figures. Now, please listen to the figures. These are not figures of any private agencies. These are figures from the budget taken 5 minutes ago because now the budget has been downloaded. The overall expenditure on agriculture and allied sectors has gone down compared to what it was last year. Last year was 3.84% of the union budget. This time it is 3.20% of the union budget. 0.64 decline in 1 year. And mind you, last year was lower than the year before that. This means that in some of the key schemes, the actual allocations have gone down, and I'm now giving you figures in rupees crore. On Prime Minister Fasal Bima Yojana, the figure has gone down from 15,500 crores last year to 13,625 crores. Obviously, the scheme is unpopular. The government's own committee is saying, please do something about this scheme. It's not doing well. The allocation has gone down. On Manrega, the allocation last year was 72,000 crore. Actual expenditure was more than 1 lakh crore. The allocation has been brought down to 60,000 crore rupees. Can you believe it? On fertilizers, the actual expenditure is 2,25,000 crores. The allocation is 1,75,000 crores. There is an overall omnibus scheme called Rashtriya Kisan Vikas Yojana, which has all kinds of components in it. Last year, 10,400 crore rupees. This year, 7,150 crore rupees. I'll not bore you further. I'll just give you one more figure. There is a scheme of the government, the PSS and Market Intervention Scheme, PSSS MIS it is called, which is to ensure that farmers get the decent price that they deserve. There used to be another scheme called ASHA. What was the overall allocation of those schemes? Last time, 1,500 crore rupees. What is the allocation for ensuring that farmers get MSP? And now listen to me carefully, Manavika. Last year was 1,500 crore rupees. This year it is 0.1 crore rupee. Yes, you heard me right. These are the real figures. This is the most anti-farmer budget in the history of this country, and I speak with figures.
Well, Sanju Verma, the charge is there. Please respond to the charges made by Yogendra Yadav.
Yogendra Yadav has this habit of looking at the glass as always half empty. Let me just put some facts out there in the public domain, which have already been elucidated by the current, CEA, Mr. Anantha Nageswaran. First and foremost, let me respond to the allegations by Yogendra Yadav that this government is anti-farmer. I hope you're aware that more than 2 lakh crore, amounting to almost 0.8% of India's GDP, has been given to more than 11 crore farmers via just a single scheme, PM Kisan. Now look at PM Fasal Bima Yojana. More than 6 crore farmers currently benefit, and you have to pay an insurance premium of less than 1%. I will not even go into the nuances of the fact that the agri credit limit has been hiked from 18 lakh crore to 20 lakh crore. But look at the MSP of wheat, paddy, all the 23 crops / food items that come under MSP. They are at historic highs, at record highs. Let me also tell you that 20,000 crore under the Agri Investment Infra Scheme to give back-end facilities to farmers and improve logistics. The corpus of 20,000 crore, that has benefited farmers like never before. Because very often, the produce is large, the MSP is in place, but because of lack of back-end logistics, farmers really don't get to benefit. Which is not the case because the Modi government has put that infrastructure in place. Also look at FPOs. When the Modi government took charge in May 2014, there were hardly any FPOs, farmer producer organizations, which is a collective of people so that farmers can negotiate the best terms when they negotiate with a counterparty on the other side. By 2024-25, there will be more than 8,000 to 10,000 FPOs in India, which I think speaks volumes about the fact that farmers will now call the shots and their bargaining power will not be compromised. So, Mr. Yogendra Yadav, please go back and educate yourself. I want to add something to what, Mr. Mehrotra said about MSMEs. Though, the former CEA on your panel rebutted the charges brilliantly, I have something to add. This is how these people, they fake data. What did Mr. Mehrotra say? He said 99.7% of the MSMEs, are in the unorganized sector, which means they are unregistered and hence they will not benefit from the schemes announced by the Modi government, including the 9,000 crore odd credit guarantee scheme. Now, this is where, I want to say that devil lies in the detail. If you look at the 99.7% figure, out of 99.7% of MSCs in the unorganized sector, only 2/3 are unregistered, which means only 66% of the overall MSMEs are unregistered. 34% 4% of the MSMEs in India today are registered and get benefits. They got benefits at the height of COVID second wave via the emergency credit loan guarantee scheme. Can I just finish in 2 seconds?
Yes, ma'am.
20 seconds.
Yeah.
MSMEs were given top preference, collateral-free loans were given, a corpus of 3 lakh crore to that effect was announced. MSMEs, benefited at the height of COVID second wave. They were given, concessional credit facility at barely 7.5%, at best 9% in some cases. So to come here and, try and torture data to suit a certain narrative, I think that is unpardonable. And I will just very quickly give you some numbers. I have this to say that this budget, without compromising on fiscal prudence, given that 5.9% is the fiscal deficit limit set for FY24, without compromising on fiscal prudence, this budget spells growth and more growth. Effective capex will be 13.7 lakh crore, tantamounting to 4.5% of India's GDP, which is a record in post-independent India. And if you are not buying that, then there's something seriously wrong with you. And I want to tell Sanjay Jha.
No, 1 second. Let's first get Mr. Yogendra Yadav to respond to you, since you brought him into this. Yes, Yogendra Yadav. He brought himself.
Now that Sanjuji has read out whatever her party had given to her, I'm very grateful. And since she wanted to educate me, I actually managed to educate myself in the process. I'm actually deeply educated by what you said, yes. So I'm educated, and here are the figures. You mentioned Kisan Samman Nidhi. Thank you very much. Last year, do you know what was the amount allocated in the budget? It was 68,000 crore rupees for Kisan Samman Nidhi. Yeah. Do you know what is the allocation?
Yeah, it's come down.
60,000.
It is 60,000 crore rupees. Yes, done. You heard me down. It has actually come down from 68 to 60. You mentioned Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Do you know that many states, now please allow me to speak. You mentioned Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Do you know that many states have opted out of this scheme? Do you know that Gujarat happens to be one of the states which has said it is such a bad scheme that we are opting out of it? Do you know that the total number of farmers covered has been declining? Do you know that actual budget allocation for this scheme has gone down from 15,500 crore rupees to 13,625 this time? You mentioned MSP. I'm very grateful that you mentioned MSP, because do you know that there used to be schemes to implement MSP? These schemes were called, there was Asha scheme, which was announced by Arun Jaitley ji, where the allocation used to be 3,000 crore rupees, which last year was reduced to 1 crore rupees, from 3,000 to 1 crore rupee. There are another scheme which is called MSS and Market Intervention Scheme, PSS and Market Intervention Scheme, where, as I mentioned, the budget has been reduced from 1,500 crore rupees to 0.1 crore rupee. I'm educated, I'm deeply educated. You mentioned FPO. Do you know how many FPOs the government had announced last time? They had said 10,000 FPOs will be created. May I ask you how many have been created? And may I ask for one little petty detail? The BJP, the government has been announcing for 6 years they went around, and in this television studio I heard lots of echoes of that. Doubling of farmers' income, doubling of farmers' income, doubling of farmers' income. For 6 years it was to happen. Do you know what was the deadline? Madam,
this cannot be a monologue by him. I need to
let him finish.
2022.
Yeah, so I've been listening to his monologue.
Do you know
but he hasn't finished.
Income today? The actual figures were, please allow me, I'm educated. I'm willing to be more educated. Let's have figures.
No, you cannot be spewing lies. You cannot be spewing lies on national television, and I am not here to listen to your monologue.
8,000.
You made reckless allegations and rebuffed them. Now you're indulging in a monologue.
Committee said that in 2022 it should become 21,000 rupees. And do you know that after 3 years it had only reached 10,000 rupees? And what is the figure? I want to know. I did not get that figure from the government. I would be deeply grateful. I would be educated, Sanjuji. Please educate me.
Yes, now let me speak.
What is the farmer's income today?
Sanju Verma, now respond to Yogendra Yadav.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yogendra Yadav, now let me respond to your allegations. How convenient of you to say that Gujarat opted out of PM Fasal Bima Yojana. You know, this is why I say that the devil is in the detail. Gujarat opted out of the PM Fasal Bima Yojana for certain reasons for just 3 months when Vijay Rupani was the chief minister way back in August of 2020. Gujarat today is very much a part of the PM Fasal Bima Yojana. So point number one, you are certainly not educated enough because you've been quoting wrong data from the past. Please quote latest data. The latest data says that despite out of 31 states and union territories, out of them, 7 states are not covered under the PM Fasal Bima Yojana. Despite 7 states not being covered under PM Fasal Bima Yojana. Now listen carefully. The number of beneficiaries has gone up from 2.8 crore, just 2.8 crore in 2014-15 to more than 6 crore as we speak now. So your second lie is rebuffed. Now let me speak on the third lie. You are talking of, overall PM Kisan allocation has come down. I think you need to also understand that we should look at aggregate numbers. On an aggregate basis, more than 2 lakh crore, tantamounting to almost 0.8 or 0.9% of India's GDP has been given out to more than 11.4 crore farmers. Now your fourth lie. Let me tell you something very interesting. Under UPA 1 and UPA 2, do you know how much was given to wheat growers by way of MSP? It was less than 2 lakh crore. And do you know how much Modi government has given just in the case of wheat in the last 8.5 years? It is 5.6 lakh crore. Now let me tell you how much was the payout in terms of pulses. In terms of pulses, under UPA 1 and 2, less than 25,000 crore was paid out. Do you know how much has been paid out in pulses alone by the Modi government? It is more than 1.2 lakh crore. Now let's talk about paddy. In the case of paddy, under the erstwhile UPA 1 and 2, only 3.7 lakh crore was given. And how much has been given out just in the case of paddy by the Modi government? 10.9 lakh crore. Now do your math. Just if you add the MSP for wheat and rice / paddy and pulses, the amount of MSP paid out by the Modi government, I'm talking of just 3 crops / food items, is more than 16 lakh crore, amounting to about 7.4 to 7.6% of India's GDP. So yes, Yogendra Yadav, you need to educate yourself on numbers.
Mr. Chengal Reddy, he's also a farmer's representative, so let us get Mr. Chengal Reddy. Mr. Chengal Reddy, which side of the divide are you on? On Yogendra Yadav's side tonight, or Sanju Verma's explanations hold any logic for you?
Questioned. I rest my case here.
See, it's like, when two immortals are fighting, mortals like us coming, we will be crushed. Don't worry. See, the positive.
How dare anybody crush a farmer in this country, Chengal Reddy Saab? Please don't get worried.
No, it's okay.
I think
See,
can I say
the positive aspects are definitely the credit allocations and focus on dairy, fisheries, and also focus on infrastructure, construction, and supporting FPOs and all that. These are all some of the fundamentals which definitely are going to improve the value addition, help the farmers in overall context. But the challenges which in the last 4 or 5 years we have been facing are totally different. Well, they are not, I don't know, we have to go into fine print to see whether they are really, whether the government is making any steps. The first and foremost is, well, there is no problem in production. The cost of production has almost increased almost in every crop. So much so today, see, if you see across the country, including whether cotton, chilies, rice, wheat, the production cost has almost doubled. It's not profitable any longer. The best case is available in South India, where we have studied Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and even some of the northern states like Maharashtra and others, this cotton, rice and all that. Virtually the investment vis-a-vis the price realization has become negative. This is there last 3, 4, 5 years. During COVID and after COVID also, during these 2 years, this is continuing. The reason we have identified is, one thing is the cost of inputs has gone up very high. Whether for pesticides or a diesel or a tractor hire charges, labor cost and availability of labor, this has become problematic across the country. And then, of course, even the taxes on agriculture inputs are very high. Some of them like 18% on the pesticides, plastic items and all that. We expected government that they should come out with what you call how to reduce the cost of production. Because fundamentally what happened in the last 10 years, almost in all the states, the state governments have provided water, irrigation facilities, and electricity, and freely and not a nominal cost, and also credit, including state government and central government. Every farmer is getting sufficient investment for production. Now, having completed the first phase, the second phase comes in terms of improving the productivity and improving the quality, and then making agriculture a globally standards. Now, this hasn't happened in the last many years. I don't know, not that it's during Modi, but it is there for last 10, 15 years, this problem was there. So the question today is, before this government, for the next 1 year is, we only suggest that Mr. Modi government should go into the finer details. See, the political discussions, we are not interested. We know normally we have...
okay, we're getting word that the Prime Minister will be speaking at 2 p.m. The point that I think you're making, Mr. Reddy, is that you think this is a comprehensive budget. That's what you're saying, in short. Is that what you're saying?
Comprehensive way? No, sorry. I mean, I can't use that word. Okay. But it is limited. It has touched, I mean, just core issues it has touched. But whether they are being made available to the farmers, whether they reach the farmers, and it will really benefit the farmers in terms of, earning more income. You see, these are the challenges. Please remember one thing. Today,
so is the budget doing it or not doing it?
Produce and give food to the country, but it is not profitable. No, budget has only touched some periphery here and there.
Okay.
But in details, if you go into the details, I think the government has to review the whole of their budget, the details, and then they have to rework the whole thing. I don't think it has met its farmers' aspirations.
Okay, not met the farmers' aspirations in ballpark terms,
to be done.
Is what Mr. Chengal Reddy said. Yogendra Yadav is raising his hand once again. I'll come back to you, Mr. Yadav. Just give me 30 seconds. I'm just playing out a few political reactions that are coming in. Just give me 30 seconds. Some political reactions. Yes. Do we have them? Okay, let's play out some political reactions. The cross section of...
First of all, you have to have an examine on about the past promises in the budget. How long it has been fulfilled? For example, farmers' issue. They promised a lot many programs, but nothing is fulfilled. Therefore, this government's track record on fulfilling area is very low. Therefore, they may announce something in the budget, they may announce something in the president's address only for like a manifesto. That's all.
The significant part of the budget was a repetition of the presidential address and the economic survey report. But I am a believer in a low tax regime, so any tax cuts is welcome, because giving more money in the hands of the people, in my opinion, is the best way to boost the economy. But I need to look at the details before I can make an educated comment about it.
टू बजट हिंदी में
देखिए, बुनियादी बात ये है कि जो सरकार का वित्तीय घाटा है वो इस वर्ष के लिए और अगले वर्ष के लिए 17 से 18 लाख करोड़ है, जिसका ये मतलब है कि सरकार मार्केट में जाएगी कर्ज देने के लिए और इससे जो निजी सेक्टर है उसको पैसा नहीं मिलेगा और जिस तरह से अर्थव्यवस्था स्टार्ट होना चाहिए वो अर्थव्यवस्था स्टार्ट नहीं होगी।
Look, some of those things are good. I'm not going to be completely negative, but I have still some questions. There was no mention of Manrega. What are we going to do about the poor rural labor? There was no mention of unemployment. There was no mention of inflation. So there are a number of questions still. There's some good things in the budget, I don't deny that. And I certainly found myself applauding when they created a new digital library for children around the country. That all these are good things. But there are still some fundamental questions that remain to be answered.
The good part of the budget 2023 is it is not a populist budget as expected. But the finance minister have really missed out on a lot of important issues. How is she going to work for making the microeconomics grow? And the capex of 35,000 crores which is given, largely given for road and railway development. So, as really known that yes, the good part is again the tax slab is increased to 7 lakhs. But the devil and the angels are in details. We need to really see.
मैं कहूँगा मुबारक हो इसको। 1.5 घंटा हमने अच्छी तरह से सुना और हमने अब हम इस पे बात करेंगे जब मौका आएगा बोलने का, उस वक्त हमारी बात सुनेंगे आप कि हम बजट के बारे में क्या कह रहे हैं।
So, man, two questions. One is that, huge announcements for Karnataka, that Upper Bhadra project, etc. Do you see all of this, purely motivated by elections and politics?
In fact, every time there's a state election, the union government goes all out. In fact, you see that the kind of investment incentives they are given for GIFT is only for Gujarat. As if only Gujarat exists in India. They say GIFT city is nowhere present in anywhere of the country except Gujarat. So what about the other states? Other states are deprived. Why sudden interest for Karnataka now? Why didn't they care about Karnataka last year? Because of the elections. Every time there's elections, they bend head over heels to satisfy and who pick the peace.
केंद्र सरकार कह रही है कि ये बजट अमृत काल का अमृत बजट है, लेकिन संजय सिंह ट्वीट कर रहे हैं कि ना किसान, ना जवान, ना नौजवान, बजट में किसी के लिए नहीं किया कोई प्रावधान। अमृत काल में अमृत के लिए तरस रहा आम इंसान। क्या हो गया संजय जी?
इस बजट में आपको नौजवानों के रोजगार के लिए कुछ दिखा हो तो बताइए। 2 करोड़ नौकरी हर साल देने का वादा मोदी जी ने किया था। इस बजट में आपको भारत के अन्नदाता किसान के लिए कुछ दिखा हो तो आप बताइए मुझे। किसानों की एमएसपी बढ़ाने की, 2 गुना करने की बात कही थी सरकार ने। उनको खाद सब्सिडी, उनको
स्टार्टअप से आएगा ना।
अरे स्टार्टअप में कितना पैसा दिया हुआ है? जिस देश में 70 करोड़ 80 करोड़ लोग कृषि पर निर्भर हैं, उसमें 2200 करोड़ रुपए का स्टार्टअप का प्रावधान देके आप बहुत क्रांतिकारी बदलाव ला देंगे। ये किसको मूर्ख बना रहे हैं आप? आपको इस देश के जवानों के लिए कुछ दिखा हो तो आप बताइए। रक्षा बजट में कोई बदलाव किया हो तो बताइए। देश के स्वास्थ्य बजट में कोई बदलाव किया हो तो बताइए। देश के शिक्षा बजट में कोई बदलाव किया हो तो दिखाइए। तो इसलिए मैंने लिखा कि ना किसान, ना जवान, ना नौजवान, अमृत काल में अमृत के लिए तरस रहा है आम इंसान।
लेकिन युवाओं में इस बात की खुशी भी है कि टैक्स स्लैब में जो परिवर्तन किया गया,
उनके लिए कोई प्रावधान नहीं है। आप मुझे बताइए क्या प्रावधान किया इसमें? कैसे रोजगार देगी सरकार? कहीं आपको दिखा हो तो बताइए। और सुरसा जैसी महंगाई बढ़ी हुई है, उसमें आप टैक्स में मामूली सी 50,000 रुपए की छूट दे रहे हैं। पहले 2.5 लाख रुपए पे टैक्स फ्री था, 2.5 लाख रुपए तक की आमदनी को अब आपने उसको बढ़ा के 3 लाख कर दिया।
अब 5 से 7 लाख कर दिया।
अरे भाई 5 से 7 लाख में आपको तमाम सरकारी स्कीमों में पैसे लगाने पड़ेंगे। आपको तमाम चीजें आपको जमा करनी पड़ेंगी। अगर आपको परिवार चलाने के लिए 7 लाख रुपए चाहिए तो उसको क्या छूट आपको मिल रही है? उसमें भी तो टैक्स।
Well, it's very clear, and we said this was predictable that there would be political opposition. But the fact of the matter, and let me ask you this question from a common man's perspective. Sanjay Jha, I want to ask you, there has been income tax rates that have been reduced. There is a 20% saving for virtually every class that is paying tax. Is that not a good announcement? The fact that there's a 10% cut in withdrawals from your EPF4, is it not good that women now get some amount of money to put in at a higher interest rate? Senior citizens get a higher interest rate. Some of these announcements that tackle the common man, would you not say that these are some of the good points of the budget? And clearly, as far as the opposition is concerned, it's disadvantage opposition in an election year?
Navika, a very pertinent question. In my opinion, in the budget, the one class of people who usually get a raw deal is India's middle class. Now, for the farmers, you have Yogendra taking a position, you have many people from CII and FICCI and ASSOCHAM talking about industry, but think about the reality of the middle class. They have been paying a bomb on terms of fuel taxes. They have actually been the biggest sufferers in terms of job layoffs. You've seen how the big tech has laid off people recently. But if you look at the post-pandemic situation, during the pandemic, 10 million job losses. That's a staggering number. Do you think there have been replacements? No. Many of them have not even been covered for inflation. Point number 3, 97% of households actually saw their incomes decline. And you are living in a high inflation period. I mean, you'll have people from the government and Mr. Bhalla saying that inflation has declined, but they're not telling you that inflation remains astronomically high, given the fact that wages have been under sustained pressure for a long time. So if you look at the Indian middle class today, they have actually taken a huge hit. Their job insecurity, job losses, flat wages, high income taxes so far, high fuel taxes, EMI liabilities, and they have been given a very nominal tax slab relief. I honestly believe this is an anti-middle class budget as well. I mean, I wonder, what does the middle class take away from all this?
Okay, he wants to come in.
Sanju Verma, con job on the middle classes, says Sanjay Jha. Respond.
Sanjay Jha is the master of subterfuge and deception. Be that as it may, let me now educate Sanjay Jha also.
Mr. Modi.
Let me educate you, Sanjay Jha. Now don't heckle me. Have the audacity to digest.
I was heckling Mr. Modi, not you.
Yes, and now please keep quiet. It's not your turn, and your voice is not very pleasant.
I will only keep quiet when the anchors tell me, not you.
Yes. Please keep quiet. You're a suspended variety. Please.
Listen, Let's not cross our courtesies limits. Let's just be courteous.
Yeah.
No, I was very courteous. I listened to a lot of things.
All right, make your point. Respond.
Yes. Now, Sanjay Jha, listen to the hard data, and data does not lie. The Income Tax Act came in 1961. For the longest time, till 2014, it was the Congress government which ruled for almost 5 odd decades. You did not even raise the basic exemption limit. The Modi government initially raised the basic exemption limit from 2 lakh per annum to 2.5 lakh per annum. Today that stands raised by the government to 3 lakh per annum in the new tax regime. Point number 1. Point number 2. Even if you are a part of the old tax regime, and listen very carefully, the benefit under section 80EE, that is interest on home loan, you know how much that was raised? That was raised from 1 lakh to 1.5 lakh per annum, the tax deductible benefit. What is the tax deductible benefit under 80C? Your government had it at 1 lakh for decades together. We raised it to 1.5 lakh per annum in the first 2 years of coming to power. Now look at the benefit under section 24A and 24B. We raised the tax deductible amount on the principal component of lakh to 2 lakh per annum. So basically, if you're a middle class who's borrowed money from a bank, you get exemption to the tune of 1.5 lakh on interest paid. You also get exemption to the tune of 2 lakh on the principal component. 3.5 lakh per annum, which is not less by any standard of imagination. Let me tell you one very other important thing. Why is it that India has seen 78,000 plus startups under the Modi regime with more than 105 unicorns. Why was it not possible earlier? This is something which nobody discusses, because in a startup, the most important thing is how you manage your cash flows. Startups obviously are not cash rich in the initial stages. They attract employees via ESOPs, employee stock options. Now, under the UPA, you know, Rahul and Navika, you were taxed twice if you were allocated ESOPs. Once when you were given the ESOP on your notional income, and once when you actually sold your ESOPs on realized income. The Modi government said double taxation of ESOPs is tax unfriendly. Now ESOPs are taxed only when you sell them on realized income. That is the biggest advantage to mushrooming startups in the current ecosystem. And let me tell you one more thing, Sanjay Jha. You know, you keep harping about investment climate being, compromised under the Modi government. The average foreign direct investment, I'm just talking of FDI, I'm not talking of FPI or FII flows. The average foreign direct investment every single year under UPA 1 and UPA 2 was $11.9 billion.
Okay.
Do you know how much the average FDI is under Modi government? Despite trashy documentaries like the BBC, it is $63 billion on an average. $63 billion every year
as a percentage
by way
of GDP.
FDI alone. So please
Talk of
get your numbers
FDI as a
right.
percentage of GDP.
Please
Don't
get your
try to fudge
numbers
the
right, Mr. Jha.
Well, ceasefire. Let me get in Mr. Yogendra Yadav, who wants to come into this debate.
I think we tend to forget that budgets are about allocations. Budgets are not about my fine speeches, they are not about intent, they are not about what has happened in the last 10 years. Budget is about allocating money. My friend Chengal Reddy said, giving importance to animal husbandry is a very good idea. I completely agree. But Chengal Reddy sir, you should judge it by whether the government has allocated more money for that. It hasn't. And while we are on this debate, and as someone said, data does not lie, can I just throw in 2 or 3 more data for this debate? In this budget, the allocation, overall allocation for rural development has been slashed from 5.8% last year to 5.3%. These are not minor digital points, decimal point. This means thousands of crores of rupees down. Budget both for education and health has been slashed. Education from 2.64 to 2.51, health from 2.20 to 1.98. I think we should discuss facts. And
okay, Mr. Bhalla wants to come in on this.
I'm waiting to be educated about doubling of farmers' income. You know, I'm actually waiting to be educated. Farmers' income was about to be doubled.
Okay.
How much has it happened? I'm just waiting for that figure.
All right.
Someone, please, there are so many teachers in the studio. Please enlighten me.
All right, Dr. Bhalla.
Very briefly, that when we are talking about rates of growth, the fact that the rate of growth has gone down is not very meaningful if you're talking about whether people have really benefited. In that case, whether the rate of growth is higher than the rate of inflation. So that's point number 1. Point number 2 is that really budgets, economics, study of how economies have performed have to do with delta. By delta, I mean, what's the change? Jo ho gaya. So therefore, each year you want to look at the change. Here, the change is that infrastructure investment has gone through the roof, continuing its previous expansion. That's very good. Taxes have been lowered. Take-home pay has gone up. So
But agriculture is a concern. So on that, would you want to say?
I'm confused in Wonderland over here with all of the numbers being thrown about, etc.
It's very easy to pick up a few line items and pretend this is the whole story. We should look at outcomes, right? We should look at what the expenditure will eventually achieve. Has it achieved what was stated earlier? But I think just pulling out a number without any context,
is part of a component of a number.
Yeah. All right. So Mr. Sarvanan of the DMK also joining us. Mr. Sarvanan, the experts say that you can't just look at one line allocation in the agriculture sector and completely junk the budget. The budget has to be seen as a whole, what it does in terms of the growth, which is the larger challenge at this point in time. And in that, CapEx has been increased, infrastructure emphasis is there, middle classes, tax breaks, all of that is there, emphasis on skilling, emphasis on education, all that is there. So what is this criticism all about? Of course, there should be more for everybody in everything, but that's not possible. Jitni chadar hai, utne hi pair pasarenge aap. So why is the opposition only looking at the loopholes?
Yeah, see, if you look at the way the BJP spokesperson has been speaking, from tomorrow onwards, there will be no poor in the country. And whatever the problem India has been facing for the 70 plus years is going to be solved because of this budget. But we all know that is not the situation and that cannot happen. But if you look at what these experts were talking, the heart and soul of India is residing with the farmers. What have they done for the farmers? Okay. Nothing. And they keep saying, oh, we have done this for this middle class, we have raised. How much can they save because of this reduction of this rebate up to 5 lakhs to 7 lakhs?
No, there's a question for you from Mr. Mantri. Why don't you pay taxes?
Why don't the wealthy farmers in the country start paying taxes? Those who are wealthy farmers making 10, 20, 50 lakhs or more.
Yeah, they should.
Why don't they pay taxes?
So when are you going to do that in your state?
See, allow me to complete. Allow me to complete, sir. Allow me to complete. See, in our state, we follow the Dravidian model, which lays emphasis on a social development and inclusive growth. Unlike what the union budget speaks about, you spend so much on capex, but not on education. You spend so much on infrastructural projects, but not for skill development and all other things. What is the point? And what is this budget allocated for the state of Tamil Nadu? We had this one AIMS announced in 2016. Not even a single brick has been built. Last 8 years, we have been patiently waiting for the Modi government to do something. They have not done anything for this. And the railway budget, a huge jump in spending on the railway budget. Last year, for the southern railways, it was a measly sum. Not even 10% of what has been spent on the other railways. Will the same things going to continue now? We are speaking about disparity. Probably they'll give more for the Karnataka projects. Whatever the railway project that is going to come in Karnataka, they will spend the money there, but not anywhere else. This BJP government has utterly failed unless there is rational GST.
Oh my God.
Okay.
You are talking only about the income tax.
So are we, just very quickly, Mr. Bhalla, are we just being...
50% is from
Okay,
GST.
are we opposing for the sake of opposition? Very quickly.
That is the broad conclusion I get.
Yeah.
However, let me just read some from the expenditure items. Education, which I think affects all, not just farmers, and maybe affects farmers even more because on the poor side. Education allocation has gone up from 99.9, I'll make it round numbers, from 100 to 113. Energy from 70 to 95. Where's one other one? Social welfare from 46 to 55. Health has gone up, including farmers. Health has gone up from 77 to 89. अब मेरे को बताओ प्रॉब्लम क्या है?
प्रॉब्लम क्या है? गौतम चिक्रमने प्रॉब्लम क्या है? आप तो जर्नलिस्ट रह चुके हैं, आप बताइए प्रॉब्लम क्या है?
क्या बताऊं? एक तो पॉलिटिकल डिस्कोर्स है जिसके बीच में हम अभी फंसे हुए हैं, और एक इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ है. मुझे सिर्फ इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ नजर आती है, एंड आई थिंक दिस इज अ ग्रोथ बजट. I am confident that India will remain one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing large economy next year as well. I'm confident our nominal growth is going to grow and we will reach the $5 trillion mark faster than all of us expect. So yeah, I see growth. And then you can slice and dice it into Dravidian model or Aryan model or whichever models that you wish. That is politics. But the numbers don't seem to suggest anything to the contrary. I think it's evenly distributed. I'm just trying to open the states distribution. I haven't got it yet. I think the numbers will be fairly clear. These are instinctive first reactions reactions, and you will see a lot of fine print coming through. I think over the next 2 days, the clear numbers will finally come
Okay,
out.
he's talking numbers too.
No,
Yes.
I was just going to say, Rahul, the same thing, that if we were to spare ourselves a political discourse, right, it's very hard to find a fault in this budget. Because this budget puts more money in the hands of the middle class, richer class, if you will.
Mr. Mehrotra, do you agree, disagree?
It does bring the first step, as you also said, towards the simplified tax regime in future. And we need to bear in mind this is one of the first budget for the next 25 years of journey, right? So we were not expecting this to change the world, to make us the #1 economy of the world. This is the right step in the right direction.
Can I make a political point? Just one political point.
Political point.
And it's not a party politics point. I think the underlying politics of this budget, as has been for the past few years, is more, it's pushing towards empowerment rather than entitlement. And that stands on the premise that the poverty is, extreme poverty is coming down. You may argue with it. Maybe it's not 0.8%, maybe it is 1.8 or 5.2%, but extreme poverty is down. There is no doubt about that. In such a case, how much entitlement are we going to see? For instance, if you see the pensions bill in this budget, it was 4% in the last budget, 5% before that, 6% before that. In this budget, it is back to 4%. I think it is good. These are all good things. Subsidies are down from 9%.
And that's where the bravery culture message is.
Yes, 9% of the budget, it was 8%, now it is 7%. The only problem right now is financial, which is interest payments remain 20%. But if you just step back, the budget is assuming that India is doing well. It is capturing the growth story. It is powering and capturing. So on the one hand, you see growth. On the other hand, you see a little going back. So that, for instance, capital investment. Now, are you going to say we should all put money into entitlements and reduce capital expenditure? No.
No.
Every rupee spent in infrastructure gives you 2.5 to 3 rupees in GDP. And I think those are the kinds of investment levers that this budget is trying to push for. To say that this person or that state or this region has not got, it's a very tiny aspect of it. I think in the overall picture, it is an empowering budget rather than an entitlement.
Well, let's see how the Prime Minister defines it. In just a few moments, he'll be speaking. But Mr. Mehrotra, yes, empowerment is a thrust, not entitlement. So, we can constantly want the state to give us, and as Mr. Goenka said, there's no end to want. Everyone wants something.
Well, I would sort of steer away from this catch-all empowerment versus entitlement language. Let's just focus on the numbers. We are discussing the budget. Let's just look at the numbers, and I think I'm glad that Surjit has actually pointed out the numbers. It's true that the numbers have increased. I've been staring at them for the last half an hour in many respects. But I think we have to look at where the balance of emphasis needed to lie. Let's just go back to agriculture, which Yogendra was talking about. There has been no question a 10% increase in the allocation compared to 22-23 in 23-24. But we need to keep the following fact in mind. Between 2019-20 and 2021, meaning over a 2-year COVID period, we saw a phenomenal increase in the people, in the workers dependent upon agriculture. I mean, my estimate based on PLFS, and by the way, I use PLFS and only PLFS, I don't use CMIE, there's been an increase of 5 percentage points in 2 years, and an increase of 53 million workers in agriculture, which means the needs of agriculture are so much greater. If the needs of agriculture are so much greater and you get a mere 10% increase in nominal terms, that's a problem. Secondly, rural development. I think since millions have gone back to agriculture, I've just said 53 million workers added to agriculture in a matter of 2 years, reversing the migration out of agriculture that was happening between 2004 and 2019. Rural development has seen a decline in allocation between last year and now. And that's why Shashi Tharoor was asking Manrega. Now, if the overall allocation for rural development, and Manrega is part of that, I haven't gotten to that level of detail of how much the allocation, especially when, we are being told by Nikhil Dey that millions of people have not been paid. West Bengal didn't receive the money. So, we've got to take a sense. Now, final thing I want to say about education and health. education, we've seen COVID has impacted our education system very severely. Children have lost 2 years of schooling. They need more inputs. We need to fill the posts in respect of, the teachers. Yes, there's been an increase in allocation of, 4 lakh crores. Surjit was right. But the allocation is only 2.9% of GDP for a country which is attempting to become the third largest economy in the world. And the final point, on health. You see, come on, we've just come through a once in a century pandemic. And yes, there's been an increase, but the point is, you look at the economic survey, it is claiming that health expenditure to GDP in the country, public health expenditure, has gone up suddenly from 1.3% to 2.2% of GDP. How is this magic suddenly arisen? My suspicion is, and I'll have to look at all of us need to look at the fine print here. 2 years ago, in the same studio, I stood here and we were shocked to learn that suddenly the health expenditure has gone up. But actually what the government had done had misled us by
केस जो आपके फोन को ऑफ कोर्स प्रोटेक्ट करेगा. यू गाइस शुड यूज इट. आई ऑलवेज यूज इट. वारंटी कार्ड, क्विक स्टार्ट गाइड, ये सब भी मिलता है. और अच्छी बात ये है कि आईकू, एटलीस्ट आईकू इज वन ब्रांड जिसने अभी तक अडेप्टर्स और यूएसबी केबल्स पे गिव अप नहीं किया है. सो ऑफ कोर्स यू गेट वन रियली हैवी पावर अडेप्टर. ये है 120 वॉट फास्ट चार्जर. इसको साइड में रखते हैं. इसी के साथ आपको दिखाई देगा USB-C केबल. ओ माय गुडनेस, यहाँ पे एक और चीज भी आपको मिलती है विच इज अ 3.5 mm टू Type-C केबल. ये OnePlus ने देना शुरू किया था और अभी आपको आईकू के साथ भी मिलेगी. बेसिकली दिस मीन्स दैट यूजर्स विल बी एबल टू इजीली यूज देयर वायर्ड हेडफोन्स विद दिस स्मार्टफोन. आई रियली लाइक दिस. तो ये सब चीजें आपको बॉक्स में मिलती हैं. अब बात करेंगे इस स्मार्टफोन की.
Globalized world, the pandemic was universal. Just look at what has happened in other countries. And what it turns out that according to the ASA report, we've done better in terms of the impact of the pandemic and recovery from there than most other countries. That's